and it let out this blood-curdling, guttural scream.
On the side of the road, he sees a deer carcass and something eating on it, which he thought was a bear. And as the lights hit it, it stood up. And, like, this gives me chills talking about it. He said it stood up and it had the face of a man.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bigfoots of America podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Sawyer. Today we are getting back in touch with Val Zavala. We had him on the last episode and we got a chance to hear kind of his story about being in law enforcement and then how that transitioned into being interested in Bigfoot. And not just interested, he is the guy here in Michigan. He's the data miner, collects all the evidence, the eyewitness accounts, and I love it that he's done that. He's done nothing but help me out in my little journey into this subject, this topic, everything I've been learning doing the TV pilot series and now this podcast show. And Val has been nothing but kind to me, so I can't thank him enough. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Val in. All right, we'll get him in here. Hey, Val, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Well, let's jump right into it. So, last episode, what a joy. Because the question to me always is, well, what was a person doing before they had this Bigfoot experience? And then how has it changed their life? And what are they doing now? So, your story, heavily involved in law enforcement as a detective, a private investigator, and then you had that question about whether Bigfoot was real or not. You got a hold of Bob Daigle, if I'm correct, and he took you out to the Waterloo State Game Area, and then that's where you had your first encounter, and it was like, holy crap. So then you got a picture off. We left off the last episode where you had taken a picture. I put that in that last episode, and we'll add your current pictures, all the rest of your pictures to this episode as well. So then you went McDonald's afterwards, or you got a cheeseburger or something after that. And then you just started to process everything. So let's pick it back up from there. Go ahead.
Excuse me. Reality is a hard thing to grasp, and I've seen some pretty bad things, in my experiences. I'm telling you, a terrible thing. The kind of things that you don't want to see without a friend. Bad. But having gone through all that and experienced this thing out in the woods, it left me crushed, because what I realized, there was two things. Number one, those things are real. And they're out there walking around and lurking out there in our outdoors. They're for real. Number two is that everything that we've heard about them was a lie, was a deceptive lie. I'm talking about newspapers, media, authorities. It's a bear, it's this, it's that. They know exactly what it is in a lot of cases, in my opinion.
Right.
So to me, that's really, really hard to to shuffle through and stuff. That's a lot to process. And the other thing was, when you experience something like that, when you encounter something like that, the witnesses go through a gauntlet of ridicule and mockery and question by their best friends. Val must have made this up. Val must be the master CGI man. Maybe he made this up. blah, blah, blah. It goes, it's not just with me. It's a lot of people experience the same thing. But I'm saying that witnesses are victims too, a lot of times. And it's hard for people that are looking at this for the first time, perhaps. Maybe they've been into it for a long time, but it's even hard for them to understand that just because Bryan has a allergic reaction. I'm just saying, Bryan. Just because Bryan has an allergic reaction to peanuts doesn't mean that because I'm not, and I like peanuts. If I hand you peanuts and you have a reaction to them, that doesn't make me any better than you or anybody else. It just means that we deal with these experiences differently. Some people will go to their dying deathbed and want to share that with somebody. And there's a lot of stuff here.
Sure.
If you look at my group site, I've posted thread after thread. I try to go through the alphabet with these threads. One of them is witnesses, and there's hundreds and hundreds of witnesses of all crosses of the demographics and economic fairway. People with varying degrees of education and stuff. It's just not uneducated people that experience these things, Bryan. It's judges, it's attorneys, bankers, everybody, and they experience it differently. So you deal with that stuff, and that's what I dealt with. But one of the things that I thought was a little odd with this, and remember, I'm completely lucid when this is going on. I'm processing this stuff.
Right.
I do recall several years ago, I was involved in a head-on car collision. You don't know this, I do. I was seriously hurt. To the point where I was glued together with Bondo cement.
Oh my.
Oh yeah. So that's my little thing. But in that experience, some people call that NDE, a near-death experience. In that experience, some of the things that I recall, I don't even like to drive down that road anymore, for goodness sakes.
Wow.
But one of the things that I remember of that day was, and I'll show you how the two match together, the two experiences. Okay. I remember seeing the truck in front of me. It was a truck that crossed the median, smacked ours, and everything was in a freeze frame. Just as I'm looking at you is exactly what I'm looking at in my mind's eye, remembering back on this. Everything was frozen in time right there. I can tell you what the woman's face looked like. I can tell you the expression on her face, her gaping mouth. The eyes are big, the mouth is open. Wow. That's what I remember in my mind's eye. I never looked at the driver. I remember her. And I remember the airbags going off into my face. And then everything went black, dark. In my mind, lucid in thought, I'm thinking mathematical problems. I'm measuring time, space, and distance. If we're driving this amount of this at this speed, at this distance, the crash impact is going to be this. Mm-hmm. And in my mind's eye, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to survive this. And then the impact, the noise, everything went black. When I open my eyes, I see people, strangers hovering over me, talking to me. I passed my gun off to my wife when I knew my wife was alive, and I'm in my badge, and I says, call the department, let them know where I'm at, what happened. Right. And back to the Sasquatch experience and stuff. While this is going on, I'm doing the same thing. Okay. I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm thinking, I'm calculating, and I'll tell you what, and I think I mentioned this in the last episode. I graduated from Central Michigan University, and
Okay.
my favorite topic in school was not mathematics. It was philosophy, theory, literature, arts, reading, history, things of that nature. I'm a different mindset
Sure.
than the mathematics and stuff. But in any event, I found myself doing the same thing. Calculating these things out, thinking about this stuff, rationalizing what I'm experiencing in real time.
Right.
When I left that area, it was a tough thing. I didn't want to go back in the woods for a year, and I didn't.
Wow.
But
Wow.
what I learned when I finally went back there, I'll tell you, I'd never seen anything like this in my life. When I went back there, I was shocked because the big tree is gone. Those loop trees or saplings are gone. The teepee structure that's photographed in the picture that I shared with you, it's gone.
Wow.
All I seen at that spot was chips of wood, sawdust.
Wow.
In my opinion, anytime somebody goes to state parks, perhaps even national parks, you're heavily surveilled. You're being watched, not just by Sasquatch, but by the people that monitor that and that oversee it. Now, I can tell you, in my experience, out in that state park, I caught a employee squatting down, crouching over, writing down license plates. The parked cars and stuff.
Wow.
So when you read reports about, let's say, for instance, hypothetically, someone disappears, and nobody knows what happened to this person. Nobody knows enough to press whatever agency is overseeing this because they have cameras around there. Think about that when you want to go bathroom when you're off trail. Think about that.
Oh my goodness.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you don't know where they're at. They know where they're at. And I'll tell you this, they're constantly doing these anti-poaching stings.
Okay.
It makes sense. Plus, and I know this to be true because I've seen it myself, people are out there, idiots are out there dumping trash in the parks.
Right.
Just dump their trash. That should not happen anyplace.
Right.
But for that reason, I understand why they're doing that. But I have too many reports in Michigan where people monitor the radio, the shortwave radios and stuff, and they pick up these conversations and they hear agencies talking back and forth, not to you and me, not for you and me, amongst themselves about what they see.
Wow.
Larry Moe and Curly over here complained that he had a nice 12-point buck and he's pissed and he's angry. He wants a deputy over there now. He wants DNR over there now because somebody killed his deer, his prized deer, that he'd been caring for.
Right,
but the head's twisted off. And he wants somebody over there now. Oh yeah, well, Larry Moe and Curly seen a big gray one, in the park. Some lady called and said she seen a beast carrying a deer on its shoulder. This goes on and on and on. This is for real. This is not made up stuff. This is what people report. To the law enforcement gumshoe guy kind of things that I like to do. And how the two mesh together is, I've said, and I wrote in a thread before, that law enforcement really needs to step it up with a different kind of training that will encompass this kind of stuff, because there's too many. Brian, there's too many mysteries that go unsolved that I believe are related to Sasquatch.
Okay.
I'm looking at another database I just started Friday, and I got it open. But I'm unable to share that with you, but there's 697 entries into that. And I'm
Oh
not
my
really,
goodness.
I know these are not all Michigan. There might be 6 or 7 in Michigan that I noticed, but these are all over. These are all over North America, and I'm just interested in the locations. When I ask people to share their Bigfoot reports with me, if you notice that I'm pretty stickler about these reports. It's the information. Number one, that's the most important thing, is to share it, the information. Number two is there has to be a sequence. There has to be an order to things. The
Sure.
most important thing to a report is the date. What date is it? And I'll tell you, and explain to you real quick how that is important. But I also want to know the location. I don't want to know somebody's home address. I'm not interested in that. And I realize and I understand that some people are very territorial about their spot. It's their spot.
Sure.
If somebody asked me where my sighting was, and I've shared this with somebody on your group site before, GPS coordinates, where it was, I don't care. It's not mine. I don't own it. It's public property. Right. I'll give you I can take somebody out there and show them, but it doesn't matter to me. On the other hand, when I'm looking at these reports and stuff, the location is important, as close and specific as you can without giving away your candy. That's your candy, somebody else's candy.
Sure.
They don't want somebody else's hands in there. I get it. But when I'm looking at these reports, especially the missing persons reports, what I do is I take the dates, the times, whatever's given. Sometimes it's scant, sometimes it's very little. I take the dates, the times, and the locations. A lot of these reports are very, very specific. Swan Creek Road, Monroe, Michigan, whatever it is. And what I do is I put that into a massive file, along with the other reports, Bigfoot sighting reports, whatever topic subject they're in. Take those same dates and times and states and provinces, put it together, and do a search. Now,
okay.
I want to look and see how many. Locations pop up at that missing person's place, wherever that happened. I want to see how many other reports were made there. I want to see the history of that location.
Sure.
That's exactly that's what Gumshoe Guy does. That's the kind of stuff that I like to do. And that's
how you identify a pattern that way. And then,
exactly.
let's get serious about these.
Yeah.
These aren't teddy bears. You keep reminding me of that. They're not big teddy bears. And if people are disappearing, we need to identify patterns so we can kind of come to the rescue, or you can come to the rescue to give the authorities, hey, there's been a history of this, and maybe pinpoint, being outlandish, the particular Bigfoot that is, taking people or killing people, because they are, some of them are cannibalistic. They will eat you. They will, they're going to kill you. I've heard stories of them decapitating people, but go ahead. Go ahead, Val.
Lots of people. Decapitation is one thing. So one of the things that I found interesting, again, not just in Michigan, but in a wider scope, North America, U.S. And this is strange. This is odd. But again, the only way that somebody would know this is if they studied and researched this stuff in a grander scale. When I came upon a situation, a report in Michigan, where a skeletal body was found underneath tree roots in Michigan.
My.
And it was a big one. It got me to thinking, if somebody went missing and law enforcement goes out there with dogs, they go out there with aircraft, they got boots on the ground, they don't see anybody. Where did the person go? We know that they were here. They disappeared for unexplained reasons. And we don't understand it. So we're not going to look anymore. And that's what happens a lot of times in Michigan and throughout the country. That's what happens. They just end the search. You can't have, nobody's going to expend that kind of money and resources,
Right.
without results. So when I came across another report, not in Michigan, but outside Michigan, where a missing person was found under the tree roots of a tree. That's when it connected to me. A lot of this stuff, a lot of the things that Sasquatch does, it's already done before. And if you can find these little patterns, like burying a body underneath a tree, who would think to look under a tree for a missing person?
Right.
But they've done it. And so when you find a missing person like that, I'm not saying that in all cases this is Sasquatches are complicit. I'm saying that they do these kind of things. Just recently, I posted something about trophies and ornaments, objects placed in trees and stuff. And that's usually a pretty provocative topic, because a lot of people in their mind, the first thing that they think of, well, big cats did that. They seen it on these National Geographic movies, cheetahs and cougars dragging a monkey or something up in a tree. Well, it has to be here in the United States, North America. It has to be big cats that did that. No, not the case. You've got people out there, very, very knowledgeable people out there that hunt mountain lions. They do it as a business. They do it for farmers and ranchers. They're very knowledgeable in the habitation and habits of mountain lions. And they know for a fact. One fellow told me last week, he says, this is what I do. I do this for a business. I live, breathe, drink, and sleep mountain lions. That's what I do. That's my livelihood. If you come across a dead animal, a corpse on the ground, chances are you're in grave danger. They've fed on it. They're going to put it away. They're going to bury it in sticks. They don't take it up in a tree. They leave it on the ground, and they'll bury it in sticks. But they're watching it, just like bears. Bears will do the same thing. Okay. They don't carry it up in a tree. But Sasquatch, in a lot of these different reports, and I don't recall if I've ever seen any reports in Michigan where they've taken animals, a lot of animals up in a tree, although there has been a couple people in Michigan, bodies dead in the trees. Okay. And that's kind of dismissed and scoffed as well, somebody went up in a tree and committed suicide. And that's the way we're going to close the books on that. Sure. When I see something like that, my antennae go up, my red flags go up. I look a little closer at this because I've seen this before. I've seen these patterns before. So across the United States and North America, there have been reports of steers. How much do steers weigh? 1,000 pounds or more?
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Yeah. Steers in the trees. You have, what did I see? I seen bear, cougar. Well, what would cougars do placing another cougar up in a tree? Right. Bear, cougar, alligator, people, dogs, tents, 10-speed bicycles, garden hoses, hubcaps, tires. Tires are pretty heavy. You go outside. I challenge anybody listening to this. Go outside and take your spare tire out. I'm not talking about that little donut. I'm talking about a full-size car, Crown Vic Royal. and
Right.
it's all aired up. It's on the rim. I challenge anybody to go outside and pick that thing up and hold it up to their side. Just hold it out and tell me what you think. That's pretty heavy. That is pretty heavy. And so, how does that tire get up in the tree? 20 feet. Horses in the trees.
Oh my.
Horses with broken backs. Something heavy had to have been on the back of that horse. Did you know that there's weight limits on horses? I didn't know this.
I
I'm
did not.
I'm not a horse guy,
Right.
but the question came up. My curiosity rose when people started reporting Sasquatches on roofs of houses and stuff. This happens a lot. It happens a lot in Michigan.
Okay.
And again, you've got basement scholars that want to come on these group sites and speak like an informed expert and argue that there's no way in the world, a 1,000-pound Sasquatch or 900-pound Sasquatch would get on the roof of your house without caving it in. That's not true. I say that because as a journeyman, a farmer, I was a man of all different kinds of hats. As a young man, a journeyman carpenter, I can tell you that the way the houses are constructed today, presently, and in the past decades, there's a reason why there's different pitches on houses that you see around Michigan. And the way the houses are constructed, there's different names for those different types of roofs. You got gable, you've got you got your A-frame and all this kind of stuff. The further you go into the snow country, you want a steeper pitch on your house to drain that snow, so it doesn't set. That's weight. When you have asphalt shingles on your roof, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weight on your roof. The difference is when that's up on your roof, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of asphalt shingles on everybody's house. Anybody that's listening to me right now on the podcast, think about this. Right now, underneath your roof, you've got hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weight. The difference is that it's distributed.
Mm-hmm.
And engineers that sit and think about this stuff and calculate this stuff, they know exactly how much weight that roof can bear. Otherwise, it'd be coming in on us.
Sure.
So the idea of Sasquatch can't be on roofs and stuff is a fallacy. It's false. It's wrong. And it's like a lot of this stuff in Bigfootery. People don't know, but they want to, they want to chirp with, such as the cougars drag this up in the trees and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but this is the stuff that I look at. And when, in my case, when I post a thread and stuff, yeah, it looks kind of goofy. It looks kind of provocative. I know it will cause, people to come out of the woodwork, to chirp a little bit.
Right.
But when I post something, I got data to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I know. This is how it happens and stuff. So there's a lot in the Bigfootery. There's a lot to know. There's a lot to see. I'm not an expert. I've never qualified myself as an expert in this stuff. But there is a lot to it, and sometimes even I second guess myself. I wonder to myself, is this worth? Because some of this stuff is pretty bad, Bryan.
Oh, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. You've been doing it for years, and I've just been doing it solid now for 2 years. And I've questioned myself multiple times: is this worth it? How long you going to do this? Because of the seriousness of it. Because you have to reconcile the big teddy bear with the seriousness of it somehow. And then, of course, with my background and understanding how the general public thinks, they just look
Mhm.
at it as entertainment. And I've said that
Mhm.
multiple times. But with this in mind, and let's talk about Michigan because you are the guy here. There's a couple of big questions I wanted to. We've talked about one of them before, but I don't think I've ever asked you the question. Have you seen? Because I'm of the thought process that we are going to see more and more encounters happening. I believe, and this is from you. This is from you, and then me 2 years after talking with you, just kind of listening to eyewitnesses when I go out and I interview them, that these Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the Watchers, whatever kind of name you want to give these things, they can outlive us. They have a lifespan anywhere between 50 to 300 years. I've heard remnants of maybe even 500 years. So if that's true, let's just say that's true for a minute, and then they are procreating throughout Michigan. Their population is on the increase, and I always use the thumb of Michigan as my example. You helped write a book about the Bigfoot sightings here in Michigan, and even specifically to the thumb of Michigan. Now, I was up here 30 years ago for about a year, and the population was more. I feel COVID killed more people than they're letting on. I try not to be a big conspiracy guy, but I do believe a lot more people died of COVID than we realize. And it seemed kind of like a ghost town up here a little bit. After 30 years being gone, then coming back, it seems
Mhm.
like more of a ghost town. And that some of the wilderness has taken back some of the farmland. And then come to find out as I dig into it more here, just in the thumb, that I've got more and more Bigfoot eyewitnesses and more encounters. And so, Val, you're the data guy. Are we seeing an increase or is it maybe relatively the same? And what do you think about the lifespan of these things?
Well, I've heard 90 years, pretty close to human people. But then
Okay.
again, but then again, we're talking about something that we really in the Bigfoot community, we don't agree on what they are. Are they
Okay.
are they,
Right.
are they alien? Because I'm telling you, um, you know, I'm not one to put a lot of that stuff on my group site, but there's a lot of evidence that points in that direction. You can't for me, I can't dismiss 400 reports of Sasquatch and UFOs together when they come
Right.
together
Right.
in a confluence in a report. You can't dismiss that. One time is an anomaly. The second time is happenstance. The third time is enemy action. There's something going on. So what
No,
are
and
these
and
things?
we
Go ahead.
don't know. And I forget, Val, since the last time we've talked, I've interviewed an eyewitness from Ohio. Now I'll go
Mhm,
right back to that. Well, I am going to Grand Rapids to interview a guy named Scott Opper, who
mhm,
has communicated with these beings, he calls them, and that they tell him that they are the star people. So
mhm.
that's going to be an interesting interview coming up this year. I think in May we go see
Star
him.
people. Star
Yeah,
people.
star people. So keep that in mind with your
All
connection
right.
there.
Okay.
Now the eyewitness I just interviewed, and you'll see her podcast episode right after your two. I think you're 11 and 12, and she's going to be episode 13.
Hmm.
She is, I believe, I'll have to look at my notes. I think Shawnee Indian descent, and she is aware of a Sasquatch that her dad had kind of a relationship with. It would come around every so often to check in on her dad. And she believes it, I think it even connected to her grandfather a little bit and still comes around. So basically, my point is, and I could be wrong with some of the details, is she said to me, off the top of her head, that this particular Sasquatch was around 120 years old
Hmm.
because of her
Hmm.
direct knowing the history of this
Hmm.
relationship of this Sasquatch and her father.
Hmm. There's a there's an interesting prose by the author that wrote Huckleberry Finn. You remember that?
Oh
Remember
yeah.
the story? Huckle.
Is
It's
it
an
Mark
American.
Twain? Mark
Yes.
Twain, Tom
Yeah.
Sawyer, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a prose that he wrote a long time ago. It was published in the New York Times or something. In that prose, he's interviewing a Sasquatch. I mean, in the same humorous but yet intelligent manner that he would
Okay.
write a story. And in the story, in the prose, he's answering from Sasquatch because obviously he's make believing there. But
Right.
when I read this the first time, it dawned on me that back in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, even this man who's been all over the world as a famous writer, literary man of the hour, he was familiar with Sasquatch because in that prose, Sasquatch tells him, not really, but this is the way he wrote this. Sasquatch was telling him pretty much the same way that the Rolling Stones sung that song. I'm not going to mention the name, but anybody that's familiar with the Rolling Stones, they remember the song. He's been around a long time. He was there
Oh
when
yeah.
you got
Pleased
it.
to meet you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
That's exactly the way this man writes this prose. So he's
Okay.
talking to Sasquatch, and Sasquatch is telling him everything about American history. I was there. I seen it. I was there.
Wow.
Yes. Now, getting back to that star people,
Uh-huh.
there was a professor at Wayne State University in Detroit in philosophy who told the class, the group, looked them dead straight in the eye. We're all star people. And here's what he had to say. He said that we live on Earth. We look up at the sky. We see the stars fall. We do occasionally, correct?
Yes.
Stars, so
Without a
meteors,
doubt.
whatever that falls
Yep.
from the sky. Rain falls from the sky.
Mm-hmm.
It litters the earth. We plant our seed in the earth. It grows. We nurture it. We eat it. We consume it. We die. We go back into the earth, and the process is repeated over and over again. For that
Okay.
reason, we have the particle, the astral particle, the cosmic particle in our body. We consume it. We eat it in our food. We drink it in our water. We breathe it in the air.
Okay.
We are star people, according to him.
Wow.
That's exactly the way he puts it. Summarized, I paraphrase what he says and stuff, but yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's pretty interesting. But there's a lot of that stuff, Brian, that I can't dismiss.
Yeah, Donna Copus is her name. I'm looking at some of my notes. You'll see
Mhm.
her episode, Shawnee Indian Descendant. And rather than the name Star People, her narrative is the Moon-Eyed People. So there's another connection to me. There's a
Big-eyed people.
similarity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So one of the puzzles of Michigan Bigfootery to me is back in the early 1600s. Supposedly, this is the earliest that anybody has mentioned Sasquatch in Michigan, the 1600s. The
Fantastic.
Native Indians of Michigan. They started. An elder claims that a early chief, and they penned this around 1600s.
Okay.
Started hearing word from warriors and stuff of hairy men like people. And he didn't know what it was that they were talking about, but he said they smell awful bad and they're hairy and so I got to thinking about that. I come across a piece, another old piece of information that talked about and I know this tickles a lot of people when I say this, because people even bring it back to me and say, Val, tell me again about the story about the three chieftains of Michigan. According to this elder, he claims that there was three at one time in Michigan. I'm talking about before the War of 1812. I'm talking about
Wow.
before I was here.
Okay,
I'm talking
1600s.
about I'm talking about before Michigan became a state.
Sure.
So we were still part of the Northwest Territory. And it is claimed that Michigan at one time was split in thirds. There was three main large Native Indian groups. One was Potawatomi, one was Ottawa, and the other was Ojibwa, otherwise
Okay.
known as Chippewa.
Mm-hmm.
Ojibwa is a real name. I think it's the authentic name, the original name, but the French couldn't pronounce Ojibwa, so they named it Chippewa.
Okay.
And by the way, Central Michigan is Chippewa is the mascot for Central Michigan.
Sure.
As the story goes, the chief, the Ottawa chief, claims that he gathered together these tribes, large tribes in Michigan at the time.
Three tribes.
And he says we have to join forces and we have to ally ourselves and become one because we have to annihilate. Listen to me. We have to annihilate the prairie people. What are the prairie people? What are the prairie people? Michigan's got some prairies. I mean, Michigan surprises me because I'm in southeast Michigan and it's largely flat land, but there are some prairies in Michigan.
Yep.
But because this occurred in Michigan, excuse me.
That's okay.
He says we have to destroy and annihilate the prairie people. Well, he goes on to describe the prairie people as being evil, big evil people or things.
Wow.
They eat our people. They steal our wives. They steal our food. And they're so numerous. They're like leaves on a tree.
Whoa.
In Michigan at the time, 1700s, it was all full of trees and marshes, wasn't it? There was no lakes. There was no cities, no towns, nothing. It was all forest and jungle and stuff. But he says that these beings were so numerous, they were like leaves on a tree. And it got me to thinking about this. How many leaves on a tree? I mean, it's like asking me to count the grains of sand in a beach or a sea or something.
Exactly.
So
I'm so excited by this because you originally told me this story. And so whenever I've said it before, Val Zavala is the guy who told me this story. My concern, and I'll let you elaborate, but I got to interject this. My concern is that they're able, how rabbits just breed quickly? Cats can breed. That's my concern. So if these things are able to multiply quickly, we're in a lot of trouble. Now go ahead.
Well, it's no secret to anybody. I would say within the last 10 years, United States has organized and started a new fighting force. Do you know what that is? Well, actually,
No.
it's two. Actually, two. They have Navy, Air Force, Army, Marines. Right.
Right.
Now they developed, I think, two more. The newest one was subterranean force.
Oh my goodness! Now I've heard of Space Force, but I have not heard of the subterranean force. You got to be kidding me!
What I've read, what I've looked at, still look at is that if you could imagine, if you could imagine United States, Michigan, we live in Michigan, so we have to think about Michigan.
Yep.
If you could imagine Michigan, as well as United States being traversed by underground tunnels, ancient tunnels, all over the place. I mean, we're worried. We're concerned about borders, securing the borders and stuff. But it's a fact that submarines go underneath Michigan, go all the way up to the North Pole. I mean, it's that big. It's that vast. We got water underneath us, bro.
Oh my goodness.
And some of the fighting and stuff that goes on underground below our feet and stuff, I believe, in my opinion, has caused a lot of this stuff to surface. I mean, if you have a plugged septic tank or a plugged drain, right, and you force the pressure down, at some point, it's going to pop up someplace else. If you've got a bad system, right?
Sure.
So we're seeing all kinds of anomalies, all kinds of bizarreness, and strangeness popping up in different places that we've never seen before.
Right.
But they live. And I'm just now hearing of more and more people discussing, proposing, theorizing that there's a lot more Sasquatch underground than above ground.
Oh my. So okay. All right. So let's hit that real quick. All right. So two, I think I told you last time, put in your database multiple sightings in the last 5 years in the Port Sanilac area. So that's what I'm allowed to say. So keep that in your database. Because I haven't figured out if I know there's at least 2 clans, and I'm trying to figure out their territories in the Thumb of Michigan. As I've been digging so deep into the Thumb of Michigan, but one of my eyewitnesses along the Black River, which extends from the Black River, up to the Minden City Swamp, had found some large burrows in the side of the Black River riverbanks. Now, there's only certain locations you can do that. If you just show up to the Black River and say, "Well, what are you talking about? Riverbanks and Cape?" No, you got to know the locations. That river snakes and changes. The topography changes. It'll run through somebody's backyard at one point, but at another point, there won't be a house seen for miles. So, and from my understanding, the burrows in the side of banks that were seemingly abandoned, but then I have another eyewitness explaining to me, oh, they rotate. They rotate their home bases. They don't stay in one place. And so, like your sighting in Waterloo, now that sounds to me like the authorities got involved if they're, buzz cutting up trees and stuff. But two, I immediately, though, I thought, well, if the Bigfoot knew you saw them, they moved to another location because they are aware. They are not big, dumb, stupid animals. They are very, they work at being concealed, put it that way. So yeah, that's exciting. And no, go ahead.
You talked about burrows in the side of riverbanks and stuff. Would it puzzle you or surprise you to know that some of these so-called missing people have been found in those burrows?
Oh no, you got to be kidding me!
Yes.
Oh,
and this goes back to what I've said earlier.
Oh boy!
When I started looking at stuff, thinking about specializing in something, I don't know that I've ever spoken about this to you or shared it with a lot of people. But back when I was in college, I was doing a thesis. And I spoke to the professor, the doctor. His name was Dr. Griffiths. At the time, Dr. Griffiths was doing cross-country talk shows on gangs, occults, and cults. The difference between the two, OCCULTS and
Okay.
CULTS, gangs, occults, and cults.
Mm.
And the way it was put to me was, and under his tutelage, I learned to focus on one topic and specialize in that. Under his guidance, under his tutelage, and the way that he put it to me was, Val, at some point in your future, there's going to be need for people like you. They're going to call on you because these things are going to happen into the future. And he explained it to me like this. He says, in today's terms, you look at the automobile, it's changed since the 1960s. In the 1960s, 1970s, you had points and spark plugs and distributor caps, and that's pretty much for your tune-up. That's what you did.
Sure.
Now, as we enter the 1990s, they got computer boards, and
Without a doubt.
you have to step up your training, your knowledge, your understanding, and stay attuned with technology and the way it changes and stuff, and the theory and the thought that goes along with that. The same way I look at this Bigfoot Sasquatch, this is where I say that law enforcement needs to look at these things and step out of the old institutional practices and principles of law enforcement principles, and get with this program. This is the 21st century, and there's a lot of different things in the 21st century that weren't around in the 20th century.
For sure. With that, can I interject something really quick here, Val?
Sure.
With that said, so like I favor law enforcement. I do believe in I'm not saying it's perfect. I've been pulled over recently for something stupid I felt, and they grilled me as if I was a terrorist just because I had a headlight out, and so that bothered me a little bit. But 99% of the time, I am full support of law enforcement. Now, connecting this to Bigfoot and the authorities, the government, have they not been able to? How you just kind of throw your hands up and say, well, I don't know what to do about it. Has that been how they approached Bigfoot, or has it been purposely concealed? I'm looking for a better narrative than just the conspiracy. Oh, they've known about it for years and they've kept it a secret. Well, I'm more into, well, why? Have they not known what to do about it, even though these creatures are killing people? Do they just not know how to handle it is what I'm getting at, or do they think that general population, like me being a Christian, I thought, well, maybe they're not telling us about Bigfoot because it might be the missing link, and then that would blow up Christianity, and Christianity does have a lot to do with money and power and control. But yeah, elaborate on that more. What are your thoughts about law enforcement?
Going back, and we're talking about Michigan specifically, and if I go outside of Michigan, I'll let you know. But speaking of Michigan specifically, in the 60s, the early 60s at Monroe County, one of the old state troopers was quoted in a newspaper saying that they tried to keep the secret, that the Sasquatch, because it wasn't only the one incident that made the news around the world about the Sasquatch accosting a young, pretty 16-year-old girl, new driver, on an old dark country road. But it was a series of incidents that occurred across the county. But the state trooper said in the quote, "We tried to keep it secret, but the word got out. It's like a common cold; it just passes around."
Right.
To that end. A year before that, it would be 1964, on the western part of the state, a similar thing occurred where Sasquatches made themselves known to people, and it got to the point where more and more people started to see it because they're running through people's orchards and farms and streets
Sure.
and yards and stuff. One of the police officers told a witness, "Do not tell anybody about this.
Okay.
We don't want to scare people." I mean, are you kidding? You got
Yeah,
these things
no.
running around here. We don't know what they are. You don't know what they are. You're scared. Why shouldn't I be scared?
Without a doubt.
So we're looking at these things now, and I still, see on my group site people, these are precious and sweet, beautiful things and stuff. And then I kind of copy and paste that little quote and put it up and show them the different sweet and precious things that these things have done.
Right.
And to contrast, their thought and stuff. But people who have that mindset and stuff, they're not going to change. They're not going to change. It doesn't matter what you put up there. They're not going to change.
For sure. Free will. We all choose what we want to. In the end, it's funny. I just thought about this. Was it yesterday? Because some people ask me about Christianity, and to me, Christianity is like Bigfoot. If people don't want to believe in Christianity, they're going to razz me about it.
Mhm.
So I just had reminded myself, because a good friend of mine is not a Christian, and ultimately he has to make the choice of what he wants to believe. So yeah, so when it comes to all Bigfoot believers, well, first of all, most of the public still doesn't believe in them, and they think it's the butt of the joke. But then, yes, every individual Bigfoot believer does have to choose what they want to believe. But Val, if I got a lion walking through my backyard, please tell me about it so I don't send the grandkids out back there. I want to know.
Yeah, I've used the same analogy explaining this with people. If I'm driving down the street one day, and there's barricades up telling me, "Hey, caution! There's a sinkhole up ahead." Do I go around the barricade and drive further, ignore it, dismiss it? Or am I grateful for somebody to warn me and say, "Hey, look, this is not the right street. Way to go.
Right.
Here's the detour. You go around it." People have to use their common sense. At some point, common sense and logic dictates.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I think err on the side of caution.
So as far as Bigfoot populations and stuff go, really in this country, we have census. Every 10 years, an agency comes out and they want to see how many people there are. They need that for various reasons. My major in college was community development. You'd use census to determine how much tax money you need, how much you're going to get from the government, how much you're going to need to support your streets, your water, your electricity, everything. It's very, very important to know. What I do know with Bigfootery is there's no way to be exact. There's no way to know, but I know this. Sasquatches are by and far the ultimate nomads, Bedouins. They rarely stay at one place for too long. They're constantly moving. They're transient people or transient creatures. But there are some that a lot of people refer to as residents. These are the ones that have lived a long, long time in your neighborhood or my neighborhood that have never been bothered by people. But people are aware of them. The neighbors know of them. But somehow the resident Sasquatches know, hey, we've raised our kids here. We've raised our little ones here. And no one's bothered us, but we don't bother the people here. We don't bother the human beings here. We don't pester them. We don't cause a problem. We don't draw notice to ourselves here. And we're allowed to live here in relative peace and safety. Then you have the nomads that have no place. They move from down south to up north, from up north to down south. These are constantly in flux. These are in my opinion, these are the ones that we hear about, that we see. And these are the ones that well, quite frankly, Sasquatch are like a box of Cracker Jacks. You got one that you might be able to rub shampoo on and feed strawberries to. Another one might want to tear you to pieces. You
Sure.
don't know. You don't know. You don't know what you're getting.
Exactly.
So there's no way to know. But what I do know about Michigan Sasquatch reports and stuff, because I look at the reports in a long-term scale, from the earliest reports to the present time reports, and
Right.
you can see the ebbs and the flows, the ups and the downs. And I tried to develop a sequential pattern to this, say like every 7 years. Is there an up or is there a down? And if so, what has caused that? And is it something? And I have to go back and look at archives and newspapers and figure out what happened in this time period that might have been a result of this up and down ebb and flow. And for the life of me, I can't figure this out, because there doesn't seem to be a pattern. But I'll tell you this, it seems like 1978 in Michigan, there was a huge spike. 1978 was the blizzard that we all know about in Michigan. Terrible, terrible blizzard. Historic.
Okay.
There was a huge spike in Bigfoot reports since 1978. And that's never been seen before. And we're talking about for Michigan. I don't care what a large Bigfoot organization says. I don't even look at that. Not for what I'm discussing. When you have across the country in 1978, when you have 200 and some reports in 1 year, that's a lot. I'm not talking about Michigan now. I'm talking about across the United States. Over 200 some reports in 1978. I've never seen anything like that, off the scale. It's just simply off the scale.
Wow.
So,
I wonder what happened, because like in the 80s, I think it was, and I have to follow up on this, but in the 80s, by Muskegon, the western shore of Lake Michigan, there were some pterodactyl sightings, and more than one, seen by multiple people. I'm going to be interviewing one of the eyewitnesses. So then you start going into the realm of portals, or time, just, different time elapses, or the portal opened and some pterodactyl flew through that multiple people saw in the 1980s. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things we just don't know. Hey, we're coming up on an hour, and there's one more question I want to ask you. Of course, we're going to have you back on, but one more question. In all your data mining and all the information that you've collected, all your knowledge, this is a very simple question. Do you think there are different types of Bigfoot? I just recently, I think in this past year, was told that there are some that might have a baboon type face. They're not dogmen, but some Sasquatch that might have a baboon type face. What do you know about that? Different types of Sasquatch.
Well, in Monroe, several years ago, along I-75, I thought I seen a beast sitting in a field. I'm on an overpass, and I mean we're moving 70 miles an hour. I got traffic on both sides of me and behind me, in front of me, so I can't stop and look, and I can't back up to see.
Sure.
But I thought I seen a brown haired beast sitting at a tree line, not far from a quarry, and it looked like it had a baboon face. Now, to me, that's me. That's what I seen. And of course, I've never counted that as another sighting and stuff, but it was worthy of me looking when I'm looking at these reports and stuff. And you're talking about, are there possibilities of different species and stuff, or different types of Bigfoot and stuff? Absolutely. Why do I know this? Why do I know this? Because across the alley here, across the block, somebody's got a Great Dane dog. I used to live next to a woman that used to raise Chihuahuas. Those are both dogs. They don't
Right
look
there,
alike.
you go.
Some people have red hair and some people have black hair.
Good
Some
stuff.
people have blue eyes. I got brown eyes. Birds are different. As far as human beings go, look at your fingerprint and breast wall, knowing that nobody. You talk about 8 billion people in the world. Nobody. It's never been proven. Never been proven that somebody in this world has the same fingerprint as me or you, Brian.
Wow. So that
Nobody.
alone, logically, yes, logic answers
I've
that
got
question.
I've
Good
got
stuff.
reports of Sasquatch with tails, with horns,
Wow.
some of them with tusk, as they describe them, tusk.
Oh my, I have not heard that. I've seen pictures with the horns and I've
Mm-hmm.
heard about the tails and the dogs, but tusk,
Mm-hmm.
that's fantastic.
That's wrong.
It's
you
crazy.
got some Sasquatch that says they say it looked like there was something wrong with it, deformed or something, because they looked like they had three eyes, or the two eyes are misaligned. One up,
Oh
one
my
down.
goodness.
Some Sasquatch with ears, and others a lot of times you don't see the ears.
Wow.
Some black complected, some pink complected. Some look more like humans. Some look more like a gorilla.
Wow.
Some that look like those long-haired dogs, those wolfhounds, whatever those things are. And some that have kinky hair, red hair, brown hair. This all sorts of things. But when you look at this in its totality, the tails, the horns, and all this kind of stuff, bruh, you have to wonder: are these from here on the earth, or where are they from?
Yeah. Yep.
A lot of questions raised on this.
A lot of questions. All right, Val,
Yeah.
we're going to leave it at that.
Okay.
Can't wait to have you on again. Thank you for taking the time. I love
appreciate
it.
it.
Yeah, you have spent the Bible says, me being a big Christian, it says, give honor to whom honor is due. So I want to always make sure I give you honor for the work you've done in your life, that I don't come along and I try to steal something you've done and make it my own. And it's just a simple fact. I grew up the old school. You respect your elders. You give honor to whom honor is due. And so I always want to respect you and give you honor. And thank you so much for taking the time out to be on our show. We're definitely going to have you back. So let me go ahead, put you in the green room. Oh, wait a minute. We got to promote you. So let's talk about your Facebook page really quick. You are the Gumshoe Guy. What's your Facebook page?
It's Michigan Bigfoot Reports and Data Gumshoe Guy Corner. I also admin Todd Standing's Bigfoot Discovery fan page.
Oh, fantastic! I did not know that.
And Wes Germer's Sasquatch Chronicle forum.
Awesome.
Those are some big heavy hitters there.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, I'm going to try to add your pictures and post editing and any of your links I can do. I'm going to do that as well. Val, thank you so much for taking the time out. I'm going to put you in the green room, and we'll talk to you in a moment.
All right.
All right, everybody. Val Zavala. Man, I love it because for me, Val brings the realness of Bigfoot into existence. It's not some far off mythological story. He's bringing the hard data. He's an eyewitness himself. So I can't wait to have him on again. And to everybody out there, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Bigfoots of America. And we hope you tune back in. We've got many more episodes to come. So everyone take care. And until next time, see ya.